Okay, before we get started, I wanted to talk about the poor finding wealth in their riches. Now, I do understand, MrCropper, why that might set off some alarm bells in you, but really, think about it this way. I mean, in Atlas Shrugged, the poor, the working poor, have a lot to be proud of and have accomplished a lot. Or even just take Eddie Willers. He's not poor, but on the other hand, he's poor in terms of his ingenuity. He's never going to be a Hank Rearden, right? But he's satisfied in his place. He does his work well. He's capable of doing his work well that he can do. And it's the same way all the way down to those tract laborer. There's some really people of high character, have a lot to be thankful for, and pride in just doing that work well. And so you could actually interpret that statement as being somewhat elitist, that the poor should just be happy with what they've got. And so this is true in a lot of Nietzsche. It could be analyzed one way or another way, and this is intentional. Nietzsche says he does this on purpose in other parts of his writing, as perhaps you are aware. And you are supposed to come up with your own ideas. Nietzsche's works are, to me, I think, more like programs. You read them, and the thoughts you come up with are your own. Nietzsche wants nothing to do with them. He's not taking responsibility. Some Nazi reads them and comes up with Nazi ideas. They provoke ideas. Nietzsche's not taking responsibility for them. Now, for the ideas other people have. Now, there are ideas in there he's taking responsibility for, but those are the ideas that generate these other ideas. So how do you judge Nietzsche as a person? Well, if I judge him as a craftsman of words to be able to create something like that, well, he was good at that. If I try to judge him, what kind of a man was he? Well, I don't really believe in that kind of question. I'd have to look to his behavior. And because of the nature of his writing, I would have to look to his life. He doesn't seem to have led a horrible life. There's no, trails of infidelity, or I don't know. He was fairly humble. He was in pain a lot. He lived a life, I think, that on a day-to-day basis was somewhat solitary, but he did have a wide range of intellectual friends. But he wasn't necessarily social on other levels, as far as I know, not much. But really, I think that all people are hard to judge, some more so and some less so, in this essential way where you wrap them up. Because really you're saying, if you're saying this person is this way, you're saying that they create this kind of behavior all the time. So if somebody's flexible and well-rounded, it becomes a lot harder, and I think Nietzsche, in his philosophy especially, made it hard to interpret him in that way. You're supposed to read it and come up with your own ideas, and you're supposed to believe them or not based on your ability to defend them and how you feel about them, not based on whether you're convinced Nietzsche is telling you what to believe.
Every type of gene structure that's possible is surviving, and people are growing up and eating peanut butter every day and whatever they're doing with their lives, that would have been killed off by any number of microbes ages ago. So we're going to get to the point where we've got a lot of DNA which would have been culled out by the quickest disease or whatever generations ago, but it's just building up and then passing on to the next generation.
Okay, MrCropper, first, I think Nietzsche did know about genes and not a lot of the specifics, and I think he did hold the view that if you take man out of nature, that, man will run down, basically. On the other hand, I disagree fully with the idea that we have left that process. So what, there are germs that would have taken us out? That just means we've moved beyond germs in our evolution. Now other things in our evolution are going to be selected for, like perhaps ideas. Can you succeed in this culture, because it's not just a matter of just surviving. It's how powerful of a survival do you have, and how much wealth, frankly. Because, for example, let's say you survive, but you don't have that much wealth. Compare that with surviving and having a tremendous amount of wealth, where you're wealthy. Not only that, but your kids and your grandkids and your great-grandkids are wealthy. And they all have the chance to try different businesses, to try different pursuits. If you were the grandson of such a man, you would just start an academy full on. You'd advertise, you'd hire some teachers enough that it would be so legit you would at least get enough students. Would it be profitable? Well, who knows? But you would have that chance. And so now we're selecting for things like that.
You have made your way from worm to man, and much in you is still worm. Once you were apes, and even now, too, man is more ape than any ape. That's a rich line, man is more ape than any ape, but I don't know if anyone could stand by it but a crazy person like Nietzsche.
Well, I stand by it. It's a metaphor. I mean, obviously an ape, whatever an ape is really like, is exactly like itself. So I think he's using the word ape two different ways in that sentence. One is the ape as it really is, and one as an ape as the human epitome of ape, you know, that includes all kinds of things like aping behavior and whatnot, copying other people, being animalistic in our in an approach to life. He's saying we're more animalistic and more in denial of that than the ape really is.
Remember, he's talking to the people in the square of the town. I beseech you, my brothers, remain faithful to the earth, and do not believe those who speak to you of otherworldly hopes. Poison mixers are they, whether they know it or not. Despisers of life are they, decaying and poisoned themselves, of whom the earth is weary, so let them go. That's what he says about religious people.
Well, actually, I think that's what he says about a larger group of people than that. He's saying that about people that believe in metaphysics of any sort, things beyond the world.
Once the soul looked contemptuously upon the body, thus she hoped to escape it and the earth. Cruelty was the lust of this soul. Is not your soul poverty and filth and wretched contentment? Some people think that being content is the purpose of life. Contentment? Verily, a polluted stream is man. You say, what matters my happiness? It is poverty and filth and wretched contentment, but my happiness ought to justify existence itself. Come again, but my happiness ought to justify existence itself? And yet it's poverty, filth, and wretched contentment.
This is why Nietzsche is thought to be self-contradictory. You're noticing these contradictions. But again, he's talking about happiness in a couple different senses. One, there's the happiness these people in the town have. And this is a wretched happiness. It ought to be the kind of happiness you could live for. That's what he's saying, I think.
Zarathustra had spoken thus. One of the people cried out, "Now we have heard enough about the tightrope walker. Now let us see him too." And all the people laughed at Zarathustra. The tightrope walker began his performance.
In this passage, okay, first of all, again, this is not Nietzsche speaking, this is Zarathustra speaking, but Zarathustra is, when he's talking about your happiness and your virtue and your sense of justice and it being wretched, he's not saying that justice and virtue are wretched. He's talking about your sense of virtue as sort of like a programming construct of the mind programs. So you have a virtue. It can be wretched, it can be great, you can express it all these different ways. And he's talking to people about how to try to express that, to express it in accord with nature, with the real world. And that doesn't mean take your lessons directly from nature, it means take your lessons from the real world, nature in the broadest sense. Doesn't mean that, oh, do what's done in the forest. No, the nature is the forest and the desert and all of these things, and we should take our knowledge and information from as much and wide set of this as we can.
Zarathustra, however, beheld the people and was amazed. Then he spoke thus, "Man is a rope tied between beast and overman, a rope over an abyss, a dangerous across. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not an end. What can be loved in man is that he is an overture and a going under. I love those who do not know how to live except by going under, for they are those who cross over. I love the great despisers because they are the great reverers and arrows of longing for the other shore. I love those who do not first seek behind the stars for a reason to go under and be a sacrifice. They don't seek a reason to be a sacrifice, but who sacrifice themselves for the earth.